Hey there, friends. Some last minute good news for 2022 regarding red flag gun laws. You know my opinion on red flag gun laws, how unconstitutional they are, and how I think they're extremely dangerous and how they can be abused. Well, New York State has had a pretty good shot across the bow, a knock to the chin, if you will, on ERPOs, extreme risk protection orders, which they call it, the nice cushy word they use, but it's red flag gun laws. And this New York State decision could very easily have a ripple effect across the country simply because so many of these other anti-gun states are trying to implement the same things. Pretty much how California and New York goes, the rest of the country tries to follow suit as far as anti-gun states go. Now, in a nutshell, New York had implemented their own red flag gun laws. Well, an ex-boyfriend filed a red flag gun law, made a petition against his ex-girlfriend, stating that she had mentioned some things and cited some things that made him believe that she was unfit to have firearms. Now, this woman not only had firearms, but she also had a New York issued permit to have a handgun. So she had her pistol permit and those firearms taken from her with no hearing, no trial, nothing. Her attorney sued, citing Bruin and other such cases like McDonald versus Chicago. In a wild turn of events that I wasn't expecting, the judge in the case, Judge Moran, entered an order declaring New York's extreme risk protection orders unconstitutional per the due process part. In other words, there was no due process involved. Therefore, these weapons and her permit effectively were taken from her unconstitutionally. Now, one of the things that kind of surprised me was that this judge used some pretty good information to make his point. What he pointed out was that if we're talking about mental health here, if you're going to put somebody in a mental hospital or something like that, a whole slew of professionals, degreed professionals in many cases, have to be sought out. And those people have to make some kind of an official professional claim against that person in order to lock that person up in a mental hospital. And the judge, and I'm paraphrasing here, and the judge is using that same, I guess, list of requirements and saying that, look, if we're dealing with mental health here also, just because it's gun rights doesn't mean that now all of a sudden you can skip all those steps of professionalism and have just some guy off the street, pretty much anybody in the state of New York, issue one of these, or at least petition for one of the issuance of one of these extreme risk protection orders, which is the boyfriend in this case. So if you always have to have professionals writing reports and telling you why a certain person should have their own fundamental rights taken from them and put into a hospital against their will, then if we're still talking about mental illness regarding the firearms, shouldn't those same requirements apply, is what the judge is effectively saying. And he's right. He's essentially saying, and he came out and said this, that the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. Guys, I think this is huge. Again, as I stated at the beginning of the video, I think in many cases, as New York, as California, as some of these other very anti-gun states go, a lot of the other states go, they follow, they somewhat plagiarize all those same laws and just implement them in their own states. Remember, part of this gun control bill that Biden signed into law earmarks hundreds of millions of dollars to throw at states as bribe money to try to get them, to extort them somewhat, to violate citizens' Second Amendment rights, because the federal government knows at the federal level that it's unconstitutional. So they feel like if they can get 50 states to implement 50 different red flag gun laws, maybe something will stick. And they can throw money at them and have people happy because they have bags of money on their doorsteps. This is a big blow right here, because this effectively shows that, look, you can try this, but even in these liberal states like New York, you're going to have a problem doing this because it goes against constitutionality. So this is huge, guys. So enjoy your New Year's Eve. Be safe. Look forward to seeing you guys next year in a day.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.